Bodnant Garden stands on a dramatic hillside in North Wales, overlooking the mountains of Snowdonia. It's a National Trust property, attracting 160,000 visitors a year. But with annual running costs of £1 million and visitor numbers in decline, Bodnant is working hard to raise its profile. It's embarking on a £2 million improvement programme led by head gardener Troy Scott-Smith.
Bodnant is a world-class garden, and it's a garden that's developing. You know, all gardens do. For me, it's one of the joys of gardening, is this idea that it's a work of art that's never finished.
Troy has been at Bodnant for 2 years, and he's well aware of the mammoth task ahead.
Well, of course, we're not just gardening any back garden, we're gardening an historic garden. It's 130 acres large, and so you need a large team of gardeners to assist me in achieving, my and the National Trust and Michael's vision for the garden. We're very fortunate at Bodnant. We've got a team of 21 gardeners, some with specialisms such as tree surgery and propagation.
Troy and his team are giving Bodnant a facelift across the whole of its 130 acres. Rising above the River Conway, the steep slopes are laid out in two utterly contrasting areas: the formal terraces and the woodland known as the Dell. The Dell is home to Dave Larter. After 12 years as the supervising gardener, his passion is undiminished.
I'm one of the lucky ones in the world. When I walk to work, I can take any path I want. Depends how much time I've got. If I want to listen to the river, I can listen to the river, catch the birds. The kingfisher flying past, no traffic. Beautiful.
Amidst the leafy cover of the Dell, there are hidden treasures to be found.
When I was 7 or 8, we had a lily growing, Mum's favourite flower. I remember looking through her plant book, A to Z, and finding these. The book tells you how scented it is. Said it grew up to 4 metres, 12 feet, and I wanted one ever since then. And then I came to Bodnant and found these in the Dell. Cardiocrinum giganteum.
Dave's boyhood enthusiasm has turned into an obsession. Every year he gathers seed pods to grow more giant lilies. It's a labour of love.
Plant for a patient person, 7 years or more from seed, not easy to germinate.
This year he has 35 lilies in bloom, but his ambitions go much further.
I want, before I retire, 500 of these flower spikes in this Dell.
Deputy Head Gardener Adam Salvin has worked at Bodnant for over a decade. He's responsible for the Italianate terraces that define the formal part of the garden.
Everyone that comes here visits this top half of the garden. It's where everyone can get to, and it also has a lot of the main features of the garden, so it's a real privilege to work in this area in particular.
There's a major project beginning in one of the terrace areas. Created 100 years ago, it's known as The Stage, inspired by an Italian outdoor theatre. Bodnant's stage has rarely seen any actors, but its elegant lines and symmetrical planting have made it a magnet for visitors. Like many areas of the garden, the stage is in need of a makeover, as the yew hedges have come to the end of their useful life. Adam and his team have removed the old yew trees and are preparing to put in new plants, but there's a serious problem.
Well, these are the new yews that we've had for the stage, and a portion of them have actually got vine weevil, and it's causing this damage to them. Normally they'd be nice, obviously green and healthy, but the vine weevil larvae actually start eating the roots, and it causes the plants to wilt and die like this.
It's a big setback, and a costly one too. 350 newly purchased yew trees are infected with the dreaded vine weevil.
These should be absolutely full of roots, these pots, and you can see this little white larva with a light brown head on it. They actually gnaw away at the roots and also the stem bases.
Half the trees are beyond rescue and must be thrown away. The remaining trees must be treated with a biological agent that devours the weevils. There won't be any planting anytime soon. In the meantime, Adam takes a delivery and gets on with what he can.
Could you bring that other tractor here? The turf's just arrived. 400 square metres, there should be on there.
It's now Adam's job to organise his team to lay and recreate the perfect lawn of the stage.
Basically, it's just to put a few of the turfs out where we need them most. Some of these tricky bits around the edges. You can see there's 4 in that first section in the wing, and then the majority of them for this central section will stack somewhere behind this bench as best we can. There's the first turf going down, one of many today. Hopefully that should stand up and get a bit bare to it after it's been in the wagon overnight. Yeah, be happy when it's all down. As long as he doesn't make a mess in there, we'll be alright. Hope he doesn't start scratching it all up. Well, you can certainly see where you've been, so it makes a big difference. Having seen this project for nearly 7-8 months now, and most of the time we've been looking at bare dirt and soil. Hopefully in a couple of days' time we'll be showing a bit more life, really.
Within a few weeks, the turf is looking as though it's been there for years. But with the new yew tree still in quarantine, the stage isn't quite ready for its new audience yet. The revamp of the stage area is driven by head gardener Troy, and also by the family that gave Bodnant to the National Trust. Michael McLaren and his mother Anne are taking an active role in the whole garden improvement programme.
It's a little bit unique at Bodnant. We still, of course, got the donor family here, and very much involved with the garden. And so, really, the day-to-day garden management is really activated by Michael McLaren, discussing with me jobs, tasks, renovations.
Michael's day job is in London as a barrister, and he visits Bodnant every 3 weeks to check on progress.
And what I said to Tom is that I'll have a look with you today and we'll sort of agree for sort of plan of action.
Sure, let's do that. Troy and I have a very good relationship. I actually have a direct line with him so far as the garden is concerned. We want to restore, revitalise parts of the garden which are a bit over mature and needing restoration. And it all works extremely well.
It needs to be cut back a bit, but it's so wonderfully symmetrical and upright. It has a wonderful architectural feel to it.
In the dell, visitors come to admire the hydrangeas in late summer. But glorious displays like this don't happen by chance.
Hey up, here it is.
Looking forward to this.
How are you? How are you?
Oh, it's cold down there.
It's very cold, isn't it? I'm going to do a bit of pruning, get those hydrangeas tidied up.
Tidying up the bushes is easier said than done because of the steeply sloping riverbanks. Adam and Dave must indulge in a fairly extreme form of pruning.
Hopefully it's still strong enough to take my huge weight. I love the hydrangeas. It's the aesthetics, isn't it? You know, we tidy them up, get deadhead them, etc., etc., get all the dead wood out. But part of it as well is to sort of keep the vigour, get rid of some of the old wood, get some of that new, nice, vigorous growth coming up for the flowers. Never a dull moment here, Bodnant. Anybody lucky enough to get a job here like me, this is the kind of thing that we get up to quite often. It's not just pushing a hoe or pulling a rake. Yeah, it's it's good fun, you know.
Bodnant Garden is famous for its laburnum arch, which blooms every spring. A magnificent tunnel of yellow, it attracts 50,000 visitors each May.
There's lots of imitations now, as I always call them, but I mean, Bodnant's Laburnum Arch was, I think, the first. I mean, 1880 something, so it's, you know, 130 years old. Amazing feature at the time to conceive, I think. With that in mind, we were really conscious that we had to preserve it. So what we did is we went through a process last winter of all these original metal arches. You see the bottom, they look sound here, but as they went into the ground, they were completely rotten, and you could just push it over, really. So they have all been renewed.
Every year, it takes about 5 weeks to cut back dead wood and replace the ties on the arch. It's time-consuming, but essential for a good show of spring flowers. After flowering, deadheading is a 2-day operation. Troy's always looking for ways of saving time, and came up with what he thought was a brilliant idea.
One year when I first came, I did actually want to speed it up. I thought 2 days was too long, and I got a mechanical hedge cutter in. Because I thought, actually, if you use a hedge cutter, you could just go along like that, and they'd all come off very quickly, and it was quick. 40 minutes, I did it all. But it looked really awful, to be honest. So I admitted I was wrong, and Tony and Laura did it again, and it looked a lot better.
Down in the dell, some of the magic has been lost in recent years. The river is cloudy due to a build-up of silt and shale. Dave is determined to make this little tributary of the River Conwy crystal clear again.
We've got major waterwork projects coming up. The big problem that we've got is further down in the mill pond, just above the waterfall there. There's a huge collection of material that's built up over the years. That needs to go, as does what's in the river here. If we didn't maintain this, then the whole river, right through to where it meets the Conwy, would basically fill up with silt and shale.
To make the dredging easier, he's decided to build a dam to divert the river. That will give the team better access to the riverbed.
Right, grab some bags. We're going to dam the river tomorrow, divert it through that way, through the pond, so that basically we've got free access up and down with machinery here. Clearing out as much of this shale as we can.
Dave is building his dam with large bags, each filled with a ton of stones. The heavy manual work doesn't worry trainee gardener Fiona Braithwaite.
Oh, I love it. At the end of the day, you might feel physically tired, but you feel as though you've achieved something, and you feel a lot healthier as well after doing it.
Day 1 went well. Day 2 is not getting off to a good start, not least because the weather's against them.
Can I say, mechanical problems this morning, first thing, that's fixed. We're back in action again now. But now look at it.
The rain has swollen the river, and the volume of water is threatening all their hard work.
The potential is that the river picks up and undoes everything that I'm just about to do.
Whatever Dave tries, the river is too much for him. He just can't hold it back. The dam will not be built today.
I didn't think it was a good sign. I was down there and the river was flowing strong. I thought, that's not a good sign. Steve said you were almost there. Too much water, not enough weight in the bags.
Not enough bags.
Enough bags. A non-gardener or a non-professional gardener, you do have this image of gardening being sort of deadheading roses and doing pretty things, but a large portion of our work is dealing with diggers, machinery, drainage work. Dave's got several weeks' work here in the river and his team, and during that time, of course, there'll be not much gardening happening in the dell.
Once the water level has dropped, the dam can be finished and Dave will be able to start dredging. Alison Clark's role in the improvement programme at Bodnant is to catalogue and protect the plants.
Well, we've got a collection of about 50,000 plants here. Some of the plants are very, very rare. Some of them are threatened in the wild. Some of the material was collected anything up to 100 years ago by famous plant collectors. So it's really important that we keep them going. All we're looking for is a few specimens to make sure that that plant doesn't go extinct, basically.
So where are we off to?
Well, I thought if we just go over and have a look at this big old chestnut tree, and that kind of is a nice introduction.
Alison is training Fiona in the art of propagation. Today's lesson is layering, a method gardeners use to create a new plant by laying a branch of an established plant on the ground where it grows roots.
So all layering is exploiting what nature does. You can see on where with the chestnut, where it's touched the ground. I mean, that's been rooted in there for years now. But and here again, over there, the branch has gone down low, touched the ground, and roots have formed.
Alison uses this layering technique to propagate many plants around Bodnant Garden.
Quite like to have a go at this one first, this rhododendron.
Bodnant is world famous for its unique collection of rhododendrons. With 800 varieties, some of them are very rare indeed. Ensuring their survival is an enormous challenge.
If anything happened to one of them and I hadn't propagated it, I'd feel quite responsible and a bit guilty, really, as though it's my fault for letting it die out. So I'm just going to scrape away a little bit of the bark at the base there. And that does two things. Make sure the cambium layer there is going to be in contact with the soil. And also it causes all the plant hormones to concentrate in that area. So hopefully rooting will take place there. So I'm just going to get one of these little pegs. I think it's probably the only one of this type that we've got in the garden.
In a couple of years' time, the branch will have taken root and become a new plant in its own right.
There's your peg. Once it's properly rooted, you can just sever it here, dig it out, move it to where you want it, or pot it up.
If we don't preserve it for the future, I think we'll lose it. And I think the plants here, they're precious. And the people who do the work, they're invaluable as well.
The improvement programme at Bodnant includes every aspect of the garden, from planting and propagation to fixtures and furniture.
Well, this is one of our classic seats at Bodnant. It's a William Kent design seat. We've got two of them, one on the stage and one on the lily terrace. You can see it's well past any use really. So we've had actually two new seats made. This is the original colour here. We just felt it a nice opportunity to actually select a new colour because we weren't really that happy with the original colour, and actually lots of visitors this year put on their comment cards, love the garden but don't like the green on the seats.
The old bench from the stage has been painted with a selection of possible colours, but before making a final choice, there's someone Troy must go and see, someone who is certain to have an opinion.
Hello,
Morning,
Troy.
Lady Aberconway.
Morning.
How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Anne McLaren married the late Lord Aberconway over 50 years ago. She lives part-time at Bodnant Hall and is devoted to the garden.
Now, you have to tell me what all the latest news is, because I've been away.
It's been a little while, hasn't it, since we got together?
That's right, it is a long time.
I mean, there's quite a few bits happening. I know you.
Troy wants to know what colour she thinks the bench should be painted.
I hate coloured seats.
Well, for me, maintenance-wise, they're a bit of a nightmare because you, of course, have to
Well, it's so
constantly keep
difficult
up
to get the
them.
right colour anyway. You did a seat just overlooking the canal.
Yeah.
I didn't like that colour at all. It was much, much too blue.
All sort of, beigey, greeny, olivey sort of colours.
That's what I'm for.
So we'll see.
Not sort of duck egg blue.
Yeah.
I don't think you want anything strident at all.
Bodnant is home to many ancient and beautiful trees. It's vital that any rotten trees are identified and assessed before they become dangerous. Adam is a qualified tree surgeon.
Basically, this AB's tree, it's been dying back for quite a while, and as you can see here, there's quite extensive decay on this buttress here, with bark peeling off. So on here we've got quite a bit of decay. If you look up into the crown, there's quite a bit of dieback. It's been steadily declining over the last few years really. So now we've got the chance to actually remove it.
The tree has to be felled. If left, the rot would spread and cause this 10-ton giant to fall of its own accord.
So we know it's hopefully okay to climb, it's safe enough to climb. So what we want to do is climb it, remove it, before it does extend even further.
Okay.
Paul and Adam have 35 years tree surgery experience between them, and they know how important safety is when you're working at heights.
If you're 100 foot up a tree, you're on your own. The only person that's going to look after you while you're up there is yourself, really.
I think he's enjoying it. At least the wind's staying down a bit. Spot on. Very good. All it is now is to snap it.
There you go.
While Paul clears the path for a safe landing, Adam makes one last check to ensure that the tree will fall in the right area without damaging any other plants.
Because it has a slight lean to the right hand side as we're looking at it, so we'll aim it slightly further to the left, and then it should end up at somewhere in the middle there. As long as we've got plenty of muscle on the rope, we'll be alright.
Even the best laid plans can go wrong. The tree veered off course and damaged a conifer.
It's just a shame about that, isn't it? That you were sickened, weren't you? You saw it moving as it was going down. You thought, it's going to go.
The felled tree is completely rotten. It might have fallen at any moment, so the main job of the day has been a success, in spite of the damage to the conifer.
You have to take the rough with the smooth. If something does happen, it would be unfortunate and unplanned, but we'd have to accept it because once it's happened, it's there, isn't it? You can't put it back.
Troy is not the only one who's attached to the trees in the garden.
I don't want to see many of my old favourite trees chopped down because I'm sentimental, but I realise that everything has a life period, and you can't keep a tree when it's got sort of untidy and old and shabby looking.
Bodnant often sends specimens to other gardens and nurseries around the UK. These links have proved to be enormously beneficial.
I planted these two trees in memory of my husband. He always wanted to have a magnolia here, and I wanted a very tall, straight one, and I managed to find one. And then this is a Judas tree, which is supposed to be the tree that Judas Iscariot hanged himself on after the crucifixion. And we used to have a wonderful Judas tree here many years ago, and it died. And I discovered that Hilliers had had a cutting from my father-in-law and had been propagating our Bodnant Judas tree, and I was able to get that for his second tree, which was very appropriate.
Now that the river in the dell has been dammed and is no longer flowing freely, the excavation of the shale is underway. The process has reached industrial proportions, and Dave is missing his plants.
It does run through my mind several times that I'm only meant to be a gardener, and can I just go back to plowing my paths and pruning my shrubs? It's a lot more straightforward than doing something like this.
It was Dave's idea to use these conveyor belts. Really, it was the best way possible of moving so much tonnage up a very steep bank, as you can see. I mean, we're currently moving, we're doing about 18 to 20 trailers a day. Now, one trailer is about 12 tonne of material. So, as you can imagine, we've been doing it a few weeks now, so it's fair tonnage we're taking away.
Months of heavy work have really paid off, and many hundreds of tonnes of material have been removed from the riverbed alone. The dam has been dismantled, so the water now flows free, sparkling in the dell once more. And Dave has an ingenious use for all this shale. He's improving the 10 miles of paths around the garden.
I'm just tidying up the paths down here a little bit. Tend to get a bit muddy through the season. Give them a bit of a scrape earlier in preparation. Some new gravel down. I'm just going to whack it down now, make it all nice and neat.
Up on the terraces, the stage is being set for some long-awaited newcomers.
Well, what we're doing now this morning, finally, is planting up some of the yew hedges on the stage, which we started now almost 12 months ago. We were hoping to have done it in the spring. We decided to leave it till the autumn, and now finally the day's come when we're trying to get some of these in and make the stage look like it used to. 55 from the edge and a 55 gap. So I spent a lot of time now just measuring between each plant, making sure the rows are the right distance apart, to try and encourage a nice thick uniform hedge with no gaps, but allowing the plant some room to expand.
The paint colour has finally been agreed for the new bench too. It's called Bothy Green. It's taken over a year to improve the decaying stage area, and Troy is delighted with the result.
Now we've got new hedges that will grow and live 100 years. And you know, it's a big area of a garden, and a significant area of the garden, which is now complete, and we can move on elsewhere.
From the formal terraces to the wild woodland, Troy and his dedicated team have renewed and refreshed Bodnant. The hope is that their efforts will be rewarded with more visitors coming to this beautiful garden in Snowdonia. Bodnant Garden stands on a dramatic hillside in North Wales, overlooking the mountains of Snowdonia. It's a National Trust property, attracting 160,000 visitors a year. But with annual running costs of £1 million and visitor numbers in decline, Bodnant is working hard to raise its profile. It's embarking on a £2 million improvement programme led by head gardener Troy Scott-Smith.
Bodnant is a world-class garden, and it's a garden that's developing. You know, all gardens do. For me, it's one of the joys of gardening, is this idea that it's a work of art that's never finished.
Troy has been at Bodnant for 2 years, and he's well aware of the mammoth task ahead.
Well, of course, we're not just gardening any back garden. We're gardening an historic garden. It's 130 acres large, and so you need a large team of gardeners to